We ready to get started? I'd like to call order the special city council meeting, the strategic planning workshop, March 24, 2025, 6 o'clock p.m. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do.
Next, please.
Invocation given by Stephen Downs, Assistant City Manager, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the American and Texas flags.
Please rise.
Our Father in heaven, we come before Thee tonight to talk about important things in this community and to think into the future and what this community can be and what it is becoming because of the great people that choose to live here. And as we consider goals and vision and the things that we look forward to for this great community, let us keep in mind those that live here now and the children of those that are living here now and what that future may look like for generations to come. We're grateful for those that are involved in the civic process and those that are here tonight to hear about the strategic plan of this community and the vision of our elected officials and those that have been elected by community members. As we discuss tonight, let us be civil in the way that we interact. Let us understand that all of us want what's best for this community, and we may express that in different ways at times, but help us be, again, civil in our approach and listen and understand each other. And also we pray that we'll be able to express our views and opinions clearly for the community to understand and for each other to understand. We're grateful again to call this community home. We're grateful for the wonderful people that live here, for the safe community that we're able to enjoy because of the first responders that dedicate their professional lives to keeping us safe. Please continue to watch over and protect this great place. We ask for this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Next, please.
Next is item 3, public comment, and I've received no request to address the council.
Next, please.
Item 4, consent agenda.
Any questions? If not, I'll take a motion, please.
I'll make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Hatley?
Hatley first.
Mr. Hatley got it first. All right, any more questions, comments? Please vote. No abstaining. Motion passes 7-0. Next, please.
Next will be item 5, strategic planning workshop, which will include council strategic planning workshop session 1 review, establishing strategic priorities, priority goal setting, and next steps.
Hey, welcome back. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me back. Tonight's where we put pen to paper, so this should hopefully get us moving down the course of really charting out the future of fate over at least the next couple of years, but possibly much farther into the future. We're going to start just by reviewing some of what we talked about last time, just so that it's fresh in our minds as we start to work through trying to establish goals related to our strategic pillars. So I will just zip through them, but please let's pause and take a moment if we want to go over something in more detail or if we need more information about it. This will be, more conversational this evening. I won't be standing up here lecturing you. I'll give you some pointers on what good goals look like, but then we really want to have a conversation about what really should make the list so that we can give staff that clearer direction to start bringing back items that meet those goals that we all are establishing. And then we'll talk about what happens from here. After we have our conversation tonight, put some things down in the PowerPoint slides. Where does that go and what does that lead to? So we'll get started with the first workshop that we had a month ago and our review of that. We talked about good governance, just casting the vision for the future, really establishing priorities and goals, considering the entirety of the community, all of the stakeholders. Looking to create community engagement throughout the process. So I was glad to see there's some folks in the audience here tonight, but the more that we can involve the community and hear their voice, the better it's going to be at decision making. We want to make sure that the decisions we make ensure the financial health long-term of the organization. It's one thing to say we're going to do it and it looks good on paper right now, but we're a 100-year business. So we have to be cognizant of what the future looks like when we make decisions. We want to make sure that we can deliver on what we promise and that people have access to what we say we are going to deliver. We want to build in accountability. We want the organization to be accountable to those it serves. We want you all to be accountable to this established. We want staff to be accountable to the plan. But ultimately, all of this, putting things down in writing, charting out the course for the future so that we can point to it and explain to people why we're doing what we're doing builds trust. The more we engage the community, the more we can be clear with them, the more they can trust in the process and they can trust in us and trust that we actually have a vision and we're trying to move toward it. This is that cycle of governance. Again, you're in that cycle right now. You do this every year or so. You envision where are we going? Why are we going there? How do we want to get there? Not necessarily all the little steps we're going to take, but really what is it we're chasing? What is that thing that we think would make Fate even better as a community so that staff can then plan, comes back to you. You all have the ability to affirm through this process, through the budget process, through ordinance, through changes in policies, and that allows staff to execute so that then you can hold them accountable, evaluate what was promised and what was delivered, and then we can make adjustments so that we can keep this thing moving into the future. The last thing we ever want to do with a strategic plan is write it down and stick it on a shelf and not look at it. And your organization is really good about pulling the plan out regularly, trying to really kind of push the ball forward and then reporting back to you. So kudos, I'm going to give kudos to staff on that. The vision of Fate. Fate is a vibrant, financially sound, and family-oriented community. Exceptional services that enhance the quality of life while fostering a safe atmosphere where citizens and businesses can thrive. The mission, which is really what the organization is to carry out to the community, to continually improve the quality of life and Fate through effective governance and fiscally of outstanding public services. So if we keep those in mind, what we do as an organization, but what it is that we hope to deliver to the community term, that can help guide us in some of the discussion that we're going to have here in just a moment. We did a SWOT analysis in our pre-interviews that I did with each of you, and just to freshen that up so that if one of these was sort of hanging around in your mind after we left last time, we make sure that we either discuss it or that we think about how we might address it as we start to plan the next few years. So the strengths that were identified, sort of point in time, how are we doing, and what are we doing well? It's a desirable community. It has the capacity to grow. It's been preparing for growth for quite a long time with regard to infrastructure planning, those sorts of things. Good infrastructure, talented people, a talented staff, but also talented folks in the community that are willing to give of themselves. Public safety and it being a safe community. I think almost all of you noted that. It was noted again in the prayer tonight. And so that's certainly something we want to keep in mind and hold strong to. Strong finances, good financial position, a low tax rate, and then well-run services. When I asked about weaknesses, we talked about there becoming some divisiveness in council and wanting to bridge those gaps. Are we saying the same things just in different ways? Do we really have polar opposite opinions, and how can we come together in the benefit of the community, and how can we figure out those things that we do have in common that we can actually move forward? Communicating with residents, this comes up every city that I work in. We can always do a better job. People are very fragmented in how they receive information, and so anything we can do to bridge those gaps is a positive. Promoting Fate. Who are we? What makes us great? How do we invite visitors to come and future residents to want to come? Getting better at telling our own story and sort of touting the value of our community. A limited tax base. Meaning residential, looking to diversify that in some ways. Is it more commercial? Is it something that we haven't even thought of yet, that the legislature hasn't even thought of yet? Who knows what the future holds? But certainly the services that are demanded, you have to be able to support with the revenue and the tax base that you have. Taxing restraints coming from, sort of the limits that are put on us by the legislature primarily. Revenue source reduction, what are those things that may start to go away? One that came up was permit fees. If permitting is going to slow down and that's a substantial amount of revenue, that becomes a concern. So that, and then if the state were to do something during this legislative session that would bring down your ability to bring in revenue, that would be challenging. Traffic, the increase of traffic, and the feeling of it being somewhat overcrowded, like the growth that has happened is making people feel like there are more people. There are more people. but what is that? What's the tipping point there where it's no longer offering the same feel of a community? Citizen understanding and perceptions. Again, if we think about communicating with our residents, what can we do to bridge some of the gaps that may exist in the community with certain portions of the community, but also just in general? And then listening, just being better at listening to each other, listening to staff, listening to the community. And I know there are some things that the staff has been working toward that hopefully will bring some more information to you from the citizenry. Opportunities, attractiveness to business. What can we do to become more attractive to business? We believe, attractive, but there may be things that we need to do that make us even more attractive. And in a competitive market with surrounding cities, what can we do to differentiate ourselves in some way? Diversifying that tax base. Better planning, smart development, smarter development. I know that's something that this group probably wants to redefine. There are some differing opinions on the body about what smart development looks like today. Open land, being, that there's opportunity for growth, but also that there is opportunity to picture that growth or to do it in some way that's desirable for the community as it is now. Keeping the tax rate low, the potential of a hotel and what that would do for an alternative revenue source, but also for tourism potentially. More community building events, creating that fate identity that we talked about earlier, being more strategic with our public relations, really trying to look for those areas that are deficient and try to bolster our communications there, or maybe there are portions of the community that aren't being either spoken to in the way that they need to or communicated to in the way that they need to. And then staying ahead of service demands, really keeping our eye on, if this public safety, for instance, level of service is what we desire, we don't want to let that slip at all. So we will always want to be looking ahead at what do we need to do to prepare ourselves to keep up with this growth that is happening. And then threats, loss of local decision making. Again, if something were to change legislature this year, poor council dynamics, if that were to devolve in some way where we could no longer communicate or could no longer function as a body. Short-term focus rather than thinking for the longer term, and again, that's what a strategic plan is intended to do, is kind of look longer into the future. Competition from those neighboring cities. Uncontrolled population growth, if we just let it go, that feels like a threat to some of the members. Losing touch with the resident desires, really trying to keep our finger on the pulse of the residents and what they truly want in their community. Personal interest over community need, not necessarily your personal interest, but it could be some person's personal interest, and allowing that loud voice to overshadow or to make us go in a direction that may not necessarily be the will of the many. Allowing the minor opinion, too much influence, and then keeping up with services, public safety with growth. Anything on those lists need further clarification or further discussion? Okay.
Seeing none? Okay.
Okay. All right. So then I asked you all, what did you think that the council's primary focus should be on right here, right now? And these are the things that popped up this year. You'll see we'll compare with the priorities or pillars from last year. But the things that came up and kind of in rank order were economic development, the comprehensive plan, zoning decisions, the future of public safety, trying to grow the sales tax base, infrastructure, making sure we keep up with it and have it in good repair, standing up for local decision making, reputation building, bringing the community together, and governance. And governance is highlighted because that was one that we want to make capture on this next slide, and you'll see that here in just a second. So the strategic priorities from 2024 were these four, the pillars were public safety, fiscal resiliency and accountability, sense of community, and sustainable infrastructure and services. And so if we look at the focus areas over here, are any of those incompatible with any of those on the left-hand side? Do we need to, so governance is one, and I'll show you the next slide here in just a second, where it sort of has a natural where it might fit.
So why don't you go to the next slide now?
Okay.
I can see that. There you go.
So service excellence and economic growth came from staff breaking up the sustainable infrastructure and services. It was a very heavy lift, like there were seven goals under it, which is, in my professional opinion, too many. And they felt that it could better be served if it had its own pillar. And so this is the one where I think governance may have a natural fit in some way. When you think about service excellence, is that government excellence? Does it fit there? Does it fit somewhere else? Or does it need to stand alone?
Do you want to go back one?
Yeah.
Or do you have a summary, you don't have them compared side by side, do you?
I can add it.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
At least for me, it helps full.
Let's do this on the fly. Come on.
So that, so you just added one, right? I'm assuming? Okay.
There we go. Okay, now I'll put it back up. So
And the
you can
rest
look
of the
at them
same?
As a whole.
Okay, and the rest are the same, right? Okay.
Yes. So that one, it didn't change, and you'll see when we break them down into their categories and we look at goals, it didn't change the goals, it just assigned them to a different pillar.
Okay. You can go back to our slide. Thank you for doing that for me. Appreciate that. Any questions, objections from council? Okay,
Okay.
go forward.
So from your perspective, we feel like we can move forward with this list.
Yeah.
And then, Lance, I'm sorry, Councilmember, I should not have called you by your first name. I'm out of practice. Is it okay with you if we consider governance belonging in one of these categories?
Actually, I think there's a number of items on that last list that don't fit into any of these categories.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
So we talk about public safety. Public safety is pretty much self-identified there. Fiscal resiliency and accountability. The things that don't fit into any of these categories to me have to do with the whole governance piece, right? Comprehensive plan development, zoning decisions, standing up for local decisions, governance. They don't, from my perspective, don't seem to fit into any one of these categories, right? So it's almost like there should be a separate category that is purely for local governance and understanding of how that should be developed, how that should be moved forward from a definition, how to get your community involved in those kinds of things, unless all of that falls under sense of community. But I think sense of community has to do more in the lines of how do we develop an atmosphere of community through public events and sporting events and, you know, local sports leagues and whatnot for kids. So that would be my summary of what I see there.
And I think what I'm hearing you say is that, so you have these things like economic development or, you know, economic growth, which feels maybe more business-like than it does feel about the community and how the community desires to develop, including residential, including a comprehensive plan. Am I understanding that? Okay. Does that resonate with anyone? How do you all feel?
I agree with Lance on zoning and on Center for Local Decisions. Zoning is dictated by state law and a process, right? We have to follow certain steps no matter what. We don't have a choice, right? And then there'll be more rules in September or June that will dictate zoning, right? So we got to recognize that. There'll be less and less, there'll be more process rules than we've ever seen before. So the council will have less flexibility on the rules, on the process rules, right? Center for Local Decision is a political event. That's why it's not about process, it's about interfacing with the state. And I think the Rockwell County plan is trying to solve that problem for the county, but there has to be a broader effort on that. And tomorrow they're having their plan review. So I think that sits there. So I agree, those two don't fit anywhere in here, and nor should they, actually. I think the rest are fine. I think the rest are really good, so they all fit someplace, so. Any more comments? Alan?
One of the things you said early on in our first meeting was, you were talking a lot about governance. Governance should be part of all of these, really. I mean, it's the action that we do that allow us to address all of these priorities, you know, so I don't see it as being in a specific category. I see it being high level of governance and understanding what that means for each of these is important. Zoning decisions affects the fiscal resiliency, the community, our infrastructure services, economic growth. I think a lot of these kind of play a little bit into all the categories. I just don't want to get too, infrastructure, of course, public safety, those fit where they need to fit, but a lot of these kind of can be sprinkled out throughout, so I have a hard time just assigning them to just be, governance is so important to what we do as a council that it should be factored into everything we do.
So what, Alan, can we put a vertical line on the right-hand side and call it governance? Like this?
Yeah, unless anybody has an objection or wants to.
You know what I'm talking about, Hillary? So just
disagree
put
with me on it, but
a big,
yeah.
when it says governance, so it covers all those, because as a foundational element of the rest of them, I think, Alan, what you're saying, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Some organizations, there are some things that are so important that they elevate them to a value. So it could be financial, responsibility, or it could be ethical behavior. It could be a value level, but I absolutely think that if it is intended to be applied to everything, it could become part of a mission or a vision statement. But what I do fear, coming back to the point about governance, is if what you're saying, and maybe we need to ask staff. So let's say it was the comprehensive plan. Where does that fit in this? What category does it fit in?
To me, it does. It's a 1 and 5 year, 7 year activity, right? It's something that cities do after, especially if I was growing, said even 5 years since we've done a comp plan. So it does make some sense to relook at the comp plan again, right? But that's not a priority. Actually, a priority is something we just need to do every 5 to 7 years. And these are stuff we have to do every year.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Tell me when I'm wrong. Tell me when you say no. But perhaps the bottom one becomes something like community and economic growth, so that it's broader than just necessarily economic growth, which might imply economic development.
But the most complaints we get is service excellence.
I think services may be covered in the one before. I'm not
I think you gotta,
offering to get rid of it.
my personal opinion, you have to call it out, right? The most complaints we get is clarity on, I call up and again, nobody answered me, or I call my water bills. It's just tons of complaints around service, right? On how we do customer service. And to me, it has to be called out so everybody knows that we do understand it and we don't hide it well, right? I just think the comp plan is a once every 5 to 7 year activity. Some cities it's 10 years, just depends on how fast you're growing, right? So, anyway, that's my opinion.
That was just an example. It wasn't intended to be the only example of what might fit in that category, but yeah, Michael?
I was trying to combine some of the existing pillars and then put governance as its own pillar at the bottom maybe, or at the top. So it would be public safety, and then fiscal resilience, economic growth, and accountability. So you move economic growth from the bottom to the second one, kind of sandwich. Sense of community stays, sustainable infrastructure, and excellent services. Kind of combo bring the service excellence up into the fourth point, and then governance would be its own bar there, or its own pillar. So that's one idea. That way we still have five. Five is good.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd try not to go over 5 if I could.
Don't go over 5.
I just did a quick look at our current comprehensive plan, and public safety is in there 26 times, fiscal is in there 65 times, communities 173 times, infrastructure and services 44 times, and economic growth 79 times. So it seems like it's a document that encompasses all of these priorities in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know if just pigeonholing it into a single thing. So, I mean,
That's why I called it out separately as a separate activity, because it's not a annual, these are annual goals or objectives or priorities we should be working on over a period of time. Comp plans are once every 5 years.
and it should have all of these priorities into it.
Agreed.
As opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, I fully agree.
We did put together a staff list of kind of goals once we get past the pillars, And I believe comprehensive plan is on the list for the planning
So let's
department.
do that,
So
council. Let's do that.
comp
Let's
plan
go
update.
Okay.
let's keep going, then we'll come back if we need to.
So for now, we're gonna leave as is,
But let's go on when we get to,
but governance is still sort of in the
in a limbo
hopper.
area.
We're
Yeah.
just gonna figure out how to deal with it, right?
Yep,
Okay.
and just keep going, let's see what
Okay.
the rest of the input is, and maybe we'll come back to it, the goal setting part.
Okay, so when it comes to setting goals underneath the strategic pillars, these are gonna be a little more discrete. They're gonna be more specific than just sort of the broader categories that we're talking about. These are made up, these are just for demonstration purposes. But really what we're trying to do when we start establishing goals is say what it is that we think supports that pillar. What are the key ingredients, key elements that we have to have our eye on? Not necessarily the steps and tasks, that's what staff does, but really what helps you define what a strategic pillar is made of. And so the more we can hone in on those most important things, the more clear the direction is we can give to staff. So in this example, just again, it's just made up, but I just want for you all to be able to see kind of how it works ideally. If public safety is our pillar, and you all say, what does success in public safety look like? We provide effective response, right? That's one of the elements of we have to be able to get there and get there in a reasonable amount of time. But the goal might be that we are having challenges related to providing that effective response time because we're having trouble recruiting and retaining personnel. So the goal would be, we think focusing on recruiting and retaining personnel would pay dividends toward the success that we're looking for under the pillar. With that, if you can say, we think staff, a goal should be, we want to focus on recruiting and retaining personnel because we think that's vitally important. Then staff takes that direction and does things with it. So if you look at the lower half of the list, sort of the gray, they may need to do an evaluation of the challenges that they're having. You know, maybe it's that the market itself is problematic. Maybe it's a pay scale. Maybe it's an hours thing. Who knows? But they're going to go and gather the data and bring back to you what they think is really the root cause so that you can start deciding how you want to address it. And so if they come back to you and they say A, B, and C need to be adjusted or changed, and you all say, yeah, we think that's true, then by year 3, they should have been able to put in place all of the steps that they said were going to be effective, and by year 3, they should potentially be able to evaluate whether or not what they did worked and bring that report back to you so we can determine if we need to move forward in a different direction. So again, we're looking at what are the key ingredients to success, like what if we're envisioning what public safety's greatness is in this community. We're going to stay at that sort of higher level when we talk about goal setting, because then staff will come back to you with the nuts and bolts that says, we heard you say this, we think this is important, let's have a discussion about it, independent of this broader conversation tonight. If we look at it in a different, just one other example, so let's say a sense of community is the pillar, and we think success means that our residents are well informed. We think that that is key, that they understand issues, they know how processes work, they can engage. Your goal might be something like building community connections and engagement. So if you think we need to engage people differently, we need to connect with them better and differently, that's a key ingredient to a sense of community. That's a goal level statement. Staff may go, okay, well in year 1, we think we could communicate with them better through an e-newsletter. It's going to be more efficient, more effective, and hopefully reach more people. By year 3, we may be looking at citizen survey results to see how people are being reached and if there was an effectiveness in what we were doing or if they feel more informed. So it's not a one and done. It's not easy to necessarily draw the straight line because there may be multiple elements. So if you said building community connections and engagement was important to you, you wouldn't expect that staff would be like, this is the one thing that we're going to do with that, right? There could be 3, 4, 5 things that they come back with over the next year or 2 or 3 years that start to move that needle or move that dial for you. If we look at it in a different way, so if your pillar is sense of community, the one we used, goal, utilize the community survey. This is part of your old plan. You'll see it here in just a second. But the staff's level would be the I and double I, which is conduct an annual survey and use it to compare results. Are we going up? Are we going down? Are we staying the same? And then introduce a business satisfaction survey. Are we really gathering what businesses think about doing business in our community? The next goal under that same pillar, so there's more than one, would be build community connections and engagement, like we said. And then it has these sub-objectives, which are growing social media engagement through creative and relatable content, streaming meetings on YouTube, and then promoting the website to increase traffic to online resources. So there's multiple steps, multiple layers that come after every one of these goal directives that you give. And then if we look at it one more way, these are multi-year types of things. So when we're talking about goals, we're not expecting it to be a task. We're doing it right now, right here, this budget cycle necessarily. Some of them might be able to be, but most of them are going to take time to see if the adjustments that we made are having effects, and if we need to adjust sort of that circle, that cycle that we've talked about all along. So in this case, utilize the community survey might be what happens as the directive or the goal this year. Next year, they may be creating a strategy to increase the participation in that survey. They may feel that the results are low, and we can get more people engaged if we tried it a different way. In 2027, we noticed that there's a decline in a certain service area based on the survey, and so staff comes back in 27 and says, hey, we may need to put more resources into this particular service area based on these survey results. And then in 2028, again, keep moving down the timeline, staff provides a report on the effectiveness of the resources that we allocated in 2027 to see if that community survey data has gone back up, or if it stayed the same, or if it's continued to decline. So again, you know, the point here is we want to be broad enough but specific enough with our goals that we talk about. And you'll see what they've been in years past, and that'll be our jumping off point. But I want you to know that it's not just, oh, we said this goal and then we're never going to talk about it again. There should be accountability. There should be this ongoing conversation related to all of it. And it should be multiple layers. It shouldn't just be we think we're just going to do this one thing and then that's enough. Usually, and it could be different departments that are addressing certain things along the way as well. So good strategic goals support the vision, the mission, and the values. So we looked at our vision and mission, and then we've talked about some of the things that the community values. It should be future-focused, tied to the community's desires, broad but specific, and easily understood. So we don't want to use jargon. We want to make sure that what we're saying, we don't use acronyms and things. We want to be moving in a specified direction. It's not just we're just going to try this thing and then see what happens. There should be an idea of what it is we're trying to make happen on the other end of it. They should be able to have indicators of success applied. It could be a percentage point increase. It could be a revenue source increase. It could be a participation increase. But we should be able to, at some point, start looking at, are we achieving it? Are we moving toward it or not? And then it should become part of the organizational culture. And your organization is very good about utilizing your strategic plan and the goals that are established by you all, and then coming back to you regularly for your input. So here we go. The first pillar we had was public safety, and you're going to see on the left-hand column is what the goals were in 2024, and we have blanks for 2025. So our option is to start filling these in for 2025 tonight. But I also want to tell you that some of these are evergreen. So just because it's on the 2024 list doesn't necessarily mean it's accomplished. There could be more of those subtasks that staff has their eye on, and I believe staff is prepared to talk about some of those things. So it's not just because it was on 2024, we cross it off and we start anew. The first thing I would suggest is that we look at 2024 and say, are any of these still absolutely important to the pillar that we're talking about? And do we want to carry them over? So that's my first question for you all on this list, is what carries over from 24 to 25?
And if you want some help with those, we've asked the staff to put together a list, and we've culled it down kind of, it's not a comprehensive list, but it's kind of the most kind of actionable pieces that we've found so far. And so we've got a little list that we put together.
Could you have it for public safety?
Oh, we got it from everything.
Okay,
Ah.
well, why don't you show us then?
Okay.
Why don't you show us then?
We'll do a quick
Can you
run
do
through.
it?
Yes.
Okay. I thought you would, but I'm looking at you because I'm like, oh.
I think it's on the,
On this one?
yes. We'll go quick because we don't want to steal the whole.
Well, just to add while we're switching, that one of the evergreens is definitely number one, retain and recruit personnel, 100%. That
We haven't even, recruited to the limit that had
Staff
been
comes up with
budgeted.
it, you're probably
So
right. so.
that has to
For
be
sure
there.
a carryover.
Okay.
Absolutely.
When we do look at staff first, then we can, so, you gonna go down or not?
Can you see them?
Yep,
Is this the correct one?
yes. Okay. So we started, we'll run through these real quick, and then we can come back and switch between the two pieces. But one of the things we had for the city manager's office, which also contains the community relations piece, is we talked a little bit about maybe a citizens academy. So that's one idea. And educate residents about government, what we do at the city. That's one idea. And then increasing representative engagement to ensure broad community participation in city decisions. It's kind of a more broader thing, but we want to get folks engaged in the city, especially folks that are maybe not talking to us right now. And then enhancing service quality and responsiveness through our customer support initiative, our customer service. And then that includes training city staff. We've got this internal customer service sort of thing we want to do, but also implementing all these user-friendly technologies. You all have seen some of that going on. Streamlining processes, enhancing efficiency. That's the manager's office.
Can we just go to the public safety ones and like, do them as we
Yeah, do
go?
them in order.
Let's just go do them in order. Okay, public safety,
I
straight
think
to
that'd
public
be
safety.
useful.
That's our biggest general fund function, so that's quite appropriate. So we've got a couple for police and one for fire. So now you may say there's only 3 bullet points for that whole outfit, but these are big ones, you know. So utilizing force multipliers, implementing license plate readers in random parts of the city. I know this is somewhat controversial, but we have license plate readers on some of our mobile units, but this could be fixed. This could be kind of considering perhaps some fixed units. So that's somewhat controversial, but it's out there. That's one idea. Beginning to train and equipping select personnel to create a crisis intervention response team. That is something that we would probably do in concert. We try to do it in concert with the county or with other cities, but that essentially is essentially like a SWAT team. Chief is over here. He can talk more if we need to on that one. So this is something we can work toward. And then for fire, this is a little bit more specific, but this is related to some of our emergency calls that we're seeing. Is adding 3 firefighters and a pickup truck to enable fire staff to respond to medical calls simultaneously. We're starting to see, oddly enough, medical calls are starting to become an issue with us. So we're starting to see medical calls happening where we're deployed on a medical call and another medical call comes in to where the first group can't move to the next medical calls. So that results in, we've got to send, we've got Josh, so we can deploy Josh, our fire marshal. He's got that kind of training. We can deploy the office staff. We can pull a public safety officer off patrol. If they're triple certified, we can send them to the medical call, which we used to do all this all the time. But if we want 3 or 4 or 5 staff who are just doing law enforcement, when we pull them off those calls to do medical, that's something we have to consider. And how many people does it take? Does it take 2 guys to do that medical call? Does it take 1? So in order to do that, we think we can improve level of service and safety. And you ask, well, how many times is that happening? Is it really a big issue? And we've been watching this. And so it's happening based on the data that we've seen for this fiscal year to date. It's about 0.6 times every day. So there's about a 0.6. So about every couple days, there's probably going to be one issue where we've got a medical call and another one comes in. So especially with the accidents we're seeing on with the construction projects, it's something that we think Chief has brought to us and said, hey, it's time. Let's tackle how do we do this. Adding a pickup truck helps us with flexibility. There may be places where we can't get an engine, but we can get a pickup truck. We get the truck there faster. We can also put that in our lease program and technically make money on it, depending on how much stuff we put in it and how much it costs to pull it out later. So that's our public safety, kind of our short list for the upcoming year.
So go back to yours.
So if we think about, those would fit under, oops, wrong one, sorry y'all. Those would fit under some of these categories as they exist.
So
That's staff,
So I
much
think
more
one is
specific.
recruit and retain personnel. I
So
think
we
that's,
want to use this one?
yeah. I think that was already said. Okay.
Okay.
Number 3 is already done,
Okay,
because I think we did a one-pager locally, and we used Rockwell County Emergency Management to do it anyway.
okay.
Number 2 sounds like it is part of the emergency response, effective emergency response, so that's part of the adding the firefighters in the truck, so maybe that
Yeah.
goes.
That
And the
could work.
adjustments to the, the
Yeah.
adjustments to the differing call
And then I think-
types
Yeah,
fit under that too.
oh, I see what you're saying, Mark, I get it.
Okay.
And then traffic strategies, is that a public safety or infrastructure?
On the traffic calming strategy seems very specific to me as opposed to a broader
Yeah, I agree.
goal.
Yeah.
So it's more like employ, implement, review, public safety improvement strategies.
Or reduce speeding or something like that?
I'm talking broader than even traffic. I'm talking things that will.
No, I get it, but
improve.
like,
If you want traffic on there, put traffic on there, but what I'm saying is higher than traffic. I'm talking about home defense, home safety.
no, I agree,
Beyond-
I'm just asking you a suggestion, I understand,
Right,
I agree.
that's, my suggestion is
Home
something,
is-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Home safety? Okay, go ahead.
My
My
point
apologies.
is to more along the lines of public safety strategy improvements. Strategies is public safety as a whole. That's not just traffic, but home, highway enforcement, whatever, but things that will enable us to stay the safe city that we are today as opposed to just focusing on traffic.
Which could include that license plate reader.
Absolutely, things like the license plate reader, things, yeah.
Yep.
But what would you put there?
I think you said public
I said it
safety
3 times.
strategy improvements, is that what,
Okay,
okay, that's what I heard. Does that feel,
And we do actually, Chief updates a 10-year, he has a 10-year strategic plan that he updates annually. But perhaps looking deeper into that, maybe making that more robust together, we could work on that.
Well, I see where Scott's going, and I guess I agree that if you put it as a broad category, you can add things to it like license plate readers, traffic calming, whatever is still under public safety.
Make it broader so that you're doing more stuff than just addressing traffic. It's, if we want to put speed bumps down, we can put speed bump downs or whatever. But my thought is broader so that as things come up, we can add goals as needed to, if we see a rash of home thefts in a rental neighborhood, be able to put goals in place to address that and fix it long-term. I'm just thinking more than traffic.
okay, got it?
I'm gonna go devil's advocate with just a couple of things that I'm sort of picking apart in this. The only reason that I ask the word traffic again is if that is something that the community wants to see and wants to know that you are focused on. And if it's not something that's on the tips of their tongues all the time, then it doesn't have to be singled out. But if it is something that you hear every single day, you might just consider having one that addresses it specifically. The other thing that I was wondering, one of the license plate readers, technology, is using technology more in public safety, something that is broader that would be of interest. We're seeing that a little bit more here and there, like how do we, employ more technology if we can. So just throwing those out there as food for thought, but I have no preference on what you all decide.
I think the traffic is important, but I think it's, the public wants safety, less crime.
Gotcha.
Traffic is a crime. It's, to me, it's all under one.
Okay. I'm gonna put this as a note to myself so that I make sure I
Do we
remember.
have a fourth one? Fourth one?
So you're saying that would like include like home safety, like fire prevention, fall prevention,
Yes,
things like that, where building safety might get involved a little bit in that too?
yes.
Okay.
Okay. So fire fall, it could be
Could be fire.
inspections or,
It could be fire, it could be,
Okay.
as we've got an increase of what is gonna be transient residents in the neighborhood, whether it's they're living in multifamily, short-term rentals, things like that, that bring different issues. Just the pillar, or the goal is to be able to address the issues as they
As they
arise
come.
to enhance
Yeah.
public safety.
okay. Others? others?
I don't know if this goes with the recruit and retain personnel, but from looking at the surrounding cities, I know that our police officers are paid less than the surrounding cities, and then in addition to that, it's going to be 3 years until we get the new police station built. And so I think that we really need to look at the base starting salary and increasing that so that we can recruit good talent and that we can retain them. I know whenever I stopped by and talked to Chief during the, he gave me a tour, and one of the things that we spoke about is how, you know, people look at Fate, other officers, they look at Fate as like a place to go and retire, and they think this is gonna be a really sleepy town, and then they get here and there's all these calls, and so they're very, very busy. And I think that, you know, we need to pay them appropriately. So I think we've got to revisit the starting salary, and even the people that are, you know, employed right now, we've got to think about what is a fair salary for our officers for the amount of work that they put in.
Yeah, I think that would fit under number one.
Definitely.
In fact, there's a pay study going on right now, and that would be implemented in your budget for next year. So that'll be a big focus already, but we should reinforce that.
Sure.
With that, I think that's good.
You did bring something up that I think it's important to make sure we know where it would fit. If there are facility and or equipment needs for police and fire, if that is something that is big enough to be its own, or if that fits under effective emergency response, giving them the tools they need to be able to. I don't know.
Just DPS bond management, just managing the bond as we go through, making that a.
Does that help for right now, or is that more like the 3-year plan, I guess?
It'll be over, it'll go, well, let's see, design, yeah, it'll be a multi-year goal. If y'all want to
Are
call
there
it out
equipment
separately.
needs that we have, are there equipment deficiencies that we have right now? I guess Chief is probably the best one to answer those questions, but, I mean, are there things right now that we're lacking that we need that, you know, I just want to make sure that our officers are getting everything that, that they need in order to keep us safe and keep themselves safe, you know? So, I don't know if you have anything to add or not to that, Chief. I mean, if you do, feel free.
So the bond that we passed, our largest deficiency that we found was our police building. And that's being taken care of now. The second was some of our fire apparatus that was sneaking up on us, and that we, a few years ago, we gave up, you know, one fire apparatus for the building our admin's currently in, and so we were starting to get stacked up with that. So those are getting taken care of. And then the ladder truck that we just ordered as another thing. As far as police vehicles and our ballistic vests and things like that, we're in good shape with that.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Our radio system, all that's in good shape, and we maintain that on a rotation basis, so
Sure.
it's on a schedule. And so it's good as we expand, you know, we have a plan that for every 2 officers that we hire, we also purchase a car.
Okay.
You know, because we have a share program, and so there's a lot of things in the process. Every time we make a move, those are all part of it.
Sure.
So we kind of have a schedule with
Okay.
those things.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
I think one of the things that, that needs to go in here is a definite date. I know that they've kind of been working towards splitting fire and police, but we're still looking at triple certified folks. When do you stop triple certified and you start doing police and you start doing fire specifically and split that department into 2 pieces?
Right now, it's kind of following that natural drift as we hire more specific single cert personnel. But we do still want to see if we can offer that if there's a police officer and they want to go to the fire academy, you know, that's.
But the downfall with that is if you hire a fire guy and you send him to police academy, he's 9 months in academy, right?
Plus field training.
He is not helping your street, period.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've done, I don't know if we
We've
really
done
would
that
do that.
in the
We've done that in the past.
We have.
That's the most risky one because it just takes so long. But it's almost easier to get the police guy and send them to the fire, if they're,
Yeah, the police
if they've got
academy's the
that.
longest, And,
Right.
Fire academies there's a lot more, and it's a little bit, it flows a little bit better, but then we have to think of EMT school as well.
Right.
But the issue that we found, the deficiency that we found, and I say this as a guy that's spent 32 years as triple trained person, is that when you get tied up in something, you can't release to go to something else. You know, and so with that, we have to, do we want to spend the money to train a person in all three fields, and then he can only function as one at a time? Or do we want to make that split and to single cert train and to go down that road, and then they have one function during the day? Even though it's multiple times, it's still that one function. So to your point, you're right, that's a decision to make, that, you know, because we can only, no matter who they are, they can only do one thing at a time.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we have to make those decisions of what to do.
And you've started down that path, but the question, I mean, it still begs the question is, do we need triple certified officers
Right.
all the time? Is that what we're hiring? Because those people are few and far between.
They are. We have one person in our hiring pool right now that is triple certified already. We have one guy that's currently on staff that would like to go to those schools, but then, you know, then so the guy that wants to go to school, is that smart money to train that person when he can still only do one thing at a time? You know, so then if we look at a neighboring model on Highland Park, so we staff both sides of the house all the way full with public safety personnel. Now we're spending a lot of money to train them to not use it or to be assigned to a certain division,
Yeah.
which I think is a waste.
And Highland Park has a lot
Yeah,
more,
it's a whole
right,
different
tax
animal.
base.
Yeah,
Way,
we can't
way more.
compare.
You
but-
can't compete.
So,
against
so
that.
maybe
But-
the answer in the short term is you have, you know, we kind of stay the course of what we're doing. We kind of gradually watch our call volume, and occasionally we send someone to the fire academy, and then we don't really send people to the police academy because it takes too long, but we kind of continue to try and get that core. So we have a core of public safety folks who can do anything, which is very valuable. But as we're hiring more single certified people. If we get a chance to hire a triple certified, that's fantastic.
You know, the thought that comes to mind is when I first got hired here, we weren't running very many, our call volume was very low. You know, we were running it with 3 guys a day that did fire and police. And, you know, those few calls a day that we had, you know, and now we're running, Friday, I think we were at 13 calls for the day for fire only. And so, you know, when we look at that, and then we have all the other things in between. And so we have to look at what is really our future gonna hold and where we get ahead, because even though we can train them, again, they can still only do one thing at a time. It's not the city we had in, you know, 2017. You know, it's way different, and the population demands a whole lot more and a whole lot faster response and dedicated response to that. Because not only do we want them trained, but we want them proficient in that.
See, the other thing, when you get officers tied up and you got .06 or .6 where you're running multiple people, now your response times are going up. Right? Last thing we want is Bedford, Ontario, where police don't show up, period. You go down to the police station and you fill out a report because they can't get there. Right? That's certainly not something we want to do. And I think that we should seriously consider supplementing police. I mean, I'm looking at the statistics right now. You're still dipping into overtime, people, because we don't have enough police officers.
Our police right now, we're at minimum staffing
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah, and we shouldn't be, right? I mean, we've authorized, the way I've been thinking about all this for the last couple of years, we've authorized to have like five police officers per shift on duty, and that would allow you to have somebody who gets injured, somebody who takes sick time, somebody's going to court, whatever. You get a core of 4 people down there, and we're not even hitting that, right? Yes, we've added fire staff, but even on the fire staff, they're still looking at overtime. They're just not enough bodies there.
What do you suggest as far as that goes? Do you feel like it is the pay that makes it harder for y'all to attract people, or is it the facility that we don't have quite yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a multitude of things, and it's not always pay, it's not always your facility, sometimes it's also, what is the draw?
Yeah.
You know, for citizens, the draw is, hey, I'm gonna go to a nice town, it's got nice roads, it's a nice quiet city, and everything like that, and so does that draw a new officer that wants and also, this sounds crazy, but it's also a namesake. You know, I work for Dallas, or I work for Houston, or I work for Fort Worth, or, I work for the big city. Any of us leave this county and we say the word fate, and they're like, where? What? Is that a town? And so, there's also that. When we put our thing out on the job board, I'd be curious of the statistics of how many people go look it up on the map, because it's not recognized.
Yeah, and that goes back to creating an identity, so glad you're here.
Chief, real quick.
Okay.
Real quick,
Oh, yeah,
I've been
please.
waiting
Oh.
for a while. Would just EMT certification for all of our officers be something that we could continue to do?
Yes, in fact, that's part of our plan.
Okay, because I just remember a lot of our life-saving award
We're officers.
for officers who happen to
They
be
were in patrol.
in patrol 45 seconds from something that saved a girl's life, as opposed to all the way back at the station. And then secondarily, as far as goals goes, is there any thought about our CID department and are we doing good on that, or do we have a backlog? Do we have too much evidence to process? Do we have the ability to process evidence?
I think CID's working pretty well right now. We're going to be adding a detective to focus on narcotics this year. It's a half-year person that we decided to do. And so when you look at, there's a lot of calls or a lot of cases that CID has that are lower priority, and it takes them months, into looking into something. And then there's a higher priority call that we will focus on right away. Something that has some evidence to it and some witnesses and things like that we can grab, and before that gets cold, we want to grab those things. And so we prioritize our investigations to do that very thing, so that, but we do look at their call levels, and sometimes it's not always about how many they have, it's about what types of cases that we have coming in.
Yeah, fraud cases take longer, things like
Right.
that.
And those are like super impossible. Those take forever. Any kind of computer thing, or, you're out there getting subpoenas and waiting for them to come back, and all those kind of things, it takes a long time.
So you're confident that we're clearing cases well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So my thing would be to have a goal. One of the goals would be to start the process of splitting fire and police. That gives you an umbrella to start that process to what it takes. I would think that would be a goal that we should start this year.
So here I got a question. So I understand our pillar is public safety, right? So recruiting and retaining personnel, effective emergency response is underneath number 3, right? So there should be one goal then.
Well, no.
Because we're single, unless we want
I'm
to
sorry, I
single certain thing.
misunderstood.
See what I'm saying? The overall strategy is a strategy, which is the pillar, right? Right? Okay, underneath the pillar you have recruit and retain. You gotta recruit them, you gotta retain it. You have a proactive strategy, right? Emergency response is a reactive strategy, right? So why don't we just have one goal, and then we, on the next level, we name out recruit personnel, split the fire department, everybody else mentioned, we just have one goal called public safety strategy improvements.
I think that, well, number one, if you did that, then you'd have potentially like 17 objectives underneath that goal. So it gets that list gets very long and kind of cumbersome to manage. But I can see where we've had lots of different conversations about things that I see where they would fit within
Strategy.
perhaps these three in a reasonable way. I would caution against having one goal underneath a pillar, because then it's just a pillar. And then it's just a catch-all.
Yeah, but then we just, for some reason, we separate out traffic. I don't know why we kept recruiting routine personnel and effective emergency
I don't think,
response.
well, traffic was
Yeah.
last time,
Yeah,
but
I
this
get
time
that.
I think what you were saying is you wanted to broaden it because traffic is part of.
I mean, I support what Scott's saying. I get it, 100%. I just saying 1 and 2 are just underneath number 3, that's all. It's part of that strategy. Their strategy has multiple tiers to it. You gotta get personnel, gotta keep them, need to be proactive, as Scott was saying, right? And then you have a reactive response, which is emergency management. That's a reactive response, right? And then you got other, whatever improvements we want. Then you have to, the foundation on that would be a new police building, right? So make sure the pay is competitive on that. I just think there's one, but that's fine. I just think we're mixing them right now.
Or maybe we rename 3 to be flexible or responsive or quicker responsive strategic
Unless we just call
pivots
these
or
two
something
out.
like that. I think Scott wants us to be able to attack problems as they come up, essentially.
Yeah.
And to be flexible and to be nimble. So maybe it's something like, we could kind of reword it.
Or just take out effective emergency response. And if recruiting and retain personnel is really important, then we do that.
Well, I'm sorry, finish.
I'm done. Go ahead. I'm done.
Scott, can you turn,
I'm sorry,
thank you.
yeah. I think the point of these goals are a couple of things. Number one, it's to create overarching things the departments can work towards. But after that, they have to be measurable too. What are we gonna do to get there? And if it's just the one overarching thing, it becomes a lot harder to be measurable in the areas that we want to be measurable. So with recruit and retain personnel, we can say, okay, we've got staffing of X. If we're operating at 70% of X, we're doing something wrong and we have to address it. Effective emergency response. We know what our response times are. We know how long it takes to get to certain calls. If that's being reduced, we have to implement particular strategies to enhance what our teams are doing on a day-to-day basis. So under public safety improvements, it's things like traffic calming strategies. What can we do to help reduce speeds on certain streets? So there's certain things that all of a sudden become measurable for improvements in each of those, as opposed to making it so big that you can't measure and see if you're actually accomplishing anything.
Hey, Chief, question for you then. Sorry, he's just stand up there for a while. So when we say effective emergency response, is that responding to emergency, or is that a regular call?
I think it has several layers to it.
Right.
Effective emergency response can be enough personnel, enough apparatus.
Right.
It could be the appropriate equipment to have, like on law enforcement side, to make sure it's equipped properly. And so I think there's a bunch of different things, and the people that are trained and capable of doing the job once they're there. So there's and one of the things, and Michael mentioned this earlier in his thing that we were talking about, critical response team. So that's one of the things that's in my 10-year plan that we're reviewing. A couple weeks ago, we had a barricaded person in the house, and so we have a couple of negotiators, but there's other things that we don't have. So if we go make entry, we don't have all the teams trained and equipment to do that. We have the first level, but we don't have the next thing. And so these are the things that's not an effective response because it's not whole.
Yeah, I was just, instead of say effective emergency response, we just effective call response, right? That way it covers lots of things, right?
And it could also go down to response times.
Right,
An
right.
effective response to, if there's delays or if there's other things like that.
Would you prefer effective response times?
Absolutely,
Scott, think?
He's meaning
Or is that number
for the
3?
goal.
I just think I don't want
The
to.
thing is that, you know, I'm not exactly sure if that's an overall goal for, I think that's a little lower down into the staff level myself, but.
Yeah, I think there are confusion, okay. Thank you for Super that. And then Hillary, I think Mark had a suggestion.
Say that again.
I think Mark Harper
Oh,
had a
yes, please.
suggestion. You want to add on?
I was saying that number 4 could be, the splitting of police and fire could be a goal, because that's one that's measurable as well.
I think the question there is that a policy discussion that you all need to have that is more significant than putting it on this list at this point? Or is there enough agreement that that's the direction we want to head, that we want to start working down that path? That's just my only question, because I heard kind of a mixed bag from y'all.
I would think there was an agreement that we need to start working in that direction. I don't,
Well, we already have started working.
well, we have started working, but I'm saying,
We already started that, so I mean, putting it on there is fine with me.
Yeah, there may be some financial impacts to that, because right now we have a very efficient system. And so our triple certification allows us to plug and play a lot. And if we start kind of making them pick, like you pick fire and you pick police, we may kind of cause more trouble than we solve initially.
Well, I
perhaps.
think it's a process of, I don't think it's going to be a flip of switch. You know, I think that's what we talked about when Chief gave us his strategic plan last year was, you know, we can't just flip the switch. We gotta grow into it. And I think just making that a priority of growing into it is where we should be looking.
But you see, that begs the question, do you hold, so recruiting and retaining personnel, are you solely recruiting triple certified people that are harder to find and waiting and waiting and waiting, or do you start looking at actually making the split and hiring your single cert people?
Yeah, we actually know we've been trying to hire, on the police side, we're 3 slots down. We've been trying to hire police officers for the last year. We've made some headway and lost some headway, but we've got three positions. So we've actually been trying to hire just police officers.
Yeah, but I mean,
There's going to have to be some sort of transition plan. 'Cause
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't, right? 'Cause you-
absolutely. But I mean, if you hold out for the unicorn, you let all the horses go
Oh, no.
by when all you're
Oh, no.
looking to do
No,
is ride an animal.
We're just trying to find we're just trying to find good folks that can fill those positions.
No, I get it. I get it, but, I mean, you're given something to get something, right? If you're looking for triple certified folks because he makes the best flexibility that you have, like the chief just said, he can only do one thing at one time at any specific incident or instance. Do you hold out for that because you have a little bit of flexibility, or do you start looking at the single cert guys who you can potentially get easier and fill your staffing needs?
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but you've been looking for the last year pretty hard just for, when you're looking for police, you're looking for police officers. Come on up.
So then,
Hang out with us for a bit.
So then that begs the question, why? Well, you know, what's the difficulty? Is it paying? Is it pay? Is it?
So
As you can tell, this is important.
There's also some extra things there that go along with that too. But I agree with you. If you just say, and we changed this with HR a while back, that we're going to search for police officers, see if they later would like to do triple training when we can afford to send them, and the time and financially. But, you know, so we've been searching for single already. Fireside, I can hire a whole bunch tomorrow. Police, but the factor is it's not only just finding people that want to do the job, but then don't have baggage that they bring with them. And so our background investigations reduce the field by at least 50%. And because when you go and Lee can attest to this, that we go through our deal and terminate for various reasons or poor conduct or, you know, and so they come here. And, you know, I'm unwilling to hire those, you know, and so we go short because we don't want to have problems with our citizenry or the job that they do or something that we have to deal with administrative later. And so in our personnel, appreciate that, because I've talked with them about that we would rather be short than have a bad officer.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess my part was, Michael just said it, he's still trying to run with the triple certified officers and use that as a scheduling. We need to move towards figuring out how we build a schedule without triple certified people and how many of that people is.
So we need to get started on whatever the transition
Yeah, I mean,
is.
yeah, if we can't hire triple certified, we need to go away from thinking that we're gonna still continue to do that. Because if all of our triple certified people quit today, we're in trouble.
Right.
So,
I
So what
think,
would be the right terminology over the next couple of years if you were to say, is it create, is it divide, is it plan for?
it's just a transition plan. I mean,
Transition.
yeah, we've been trying to hire fire and police separately and offer, incentives for the triple certification because.
Police and fire, like separated police and fire, is that the right terminology for
Cor-
y'all?
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
And transition typically is a 2 to 3 to 5 year process, right?
Because there is a benefit to having experience in all areas. Police officers can get to typically at the scene faster than fire trucks can get.
I
and-
don't deny
But
that.
that's, like Chief said, it hasn't been a focus this past year. It's been a focus, we hire police, we hire fire. If they happen to have the bonus of, then great.
And do you call them departments or divisions?
Right now, they're divisions.
Okay, just want to make sure okay. All right. Ready to move on to the next one?
Any more? Yep.
It's the largest function.
Oh, that was my fault with the
It's the largest function. Yeah, actually, if you ask folks what's important, they will tell you public safety,
Oh,
right?
100%. I mean,
So
that's the one we need
it's,
for the
it's
time
good
on.
that we spend a lot of time on this because, we're the 6th safest city. But then we just talked about like, okay, we're a safe place to live, but, if we can't get to a medical call, it doesn't help that we're the 6th safest city for having your stuff stolen or violent crime because.
We're not following whatever the call types are as
Right.
agilely as
So it's,
possible.
if we can get this figured out, then it's worth the time spent.
Okay, so the next one is fiscal resiliency and accountability. We have appropriate tax rate, revenue management, fiscally productive development, and then debt expense management. Do you want to pop your slide up and show them what you've got? Or I'll pop it up, but do you?
Well, thank you. All right, now we have to find out where it is. All right, so finance, we've got some maintaining, of course, we want to maintain our high financial excellence, and we do that through transparency, system improvements, and customer service, kind of refers back to the customer service. We also potentially have some critical staff retirements coming up, so we want to start getting ready for those in the finance department because it's a small unit, and so one person retires, it's a major deal. And then utility billing, specifically in the finance, we're going to move to some software improvements, and then kind of similar with municipal court, we're going to do some coordination, getting into some, and there's some detail there, but essentially coordinating better with some of the other agencies and having some capabilities improvements. And then we talk about economic development, HR. I don't know if there's much other financial. I think there's a lot of public works. That's about it. And the departments put together a big list. We pared them down to these ones, kind of a little more actionable top list.
Okay, so we've got any carryovers.
All of them.
That's totally fine.
That's all of them.
That is correct.
Any, Cody, you go with that off? Mark, I don't think you are.
If it ain't broke.
Alan?
Yeah, all of them.
Lance? Okay.
Okay, and is there anything, let's see if I can do this. Is there anything that is missing, either from staff's perspective or from your perspective, that wouldn't be covered in one of these categories? Anything you're tracking, any sort of like, you've got your debt, if there's debt issuances or whatever, you've got fiscally productive development.
I think we got, yeah. Yep,
Okay,
next one.
okay.
We did-
Y'all got out all your energy on the first one.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, here's Sense of Community. Community awareness through branding and marketing, utilizing the community survey, building community connections and engagement, and increasing city messaging. Do you want to look at your list? I will
Yep.
play Vanna White here.
All right, so I think a lot of that fits in, and Stephen, feel free to jump in and help anytime you like, if needed.
Yeah, one
No.
So I think some of that may fit in the manager's office or under these. So we've got the Citizen Academy, we've got kind of getting into finding out, getting those folks that don't seem to connect with us, trying to find them, essentially going to them. And then the customer service, essentially the customer service initiative, those three. And I don't know if anything else kind of fits in that one.
Is there anything like rec related?
There's some we've got some parks. Where did the park stuff go? We've got under parks, collaborating with economic development on the Fate Station Park improvements, and some nuts and bolts stuff, establishing maintenance schedules, and kind of doing some planning on those.
You want to jump back to yours? Any changes on this one, or do you want to just copy them over?
I struggle a little bit with this one coming from advertising, is that how much of the taxpayer dollars do we spend trying to reach people who just don't want to listen or want to be bothered or they actually even care about being engaged, you know? It's by all means, we have to try. We have to try and reach people, but at some point you get to a diminishing returns of, it just becomes lost in the noise, and we have a large group of people in the city who just are disengaged because they want to be disengaged. It's funny, I was reading something about, transparency, and a lot of our candidates were talking about transparency. It's like how do you have transparency when no one's looking? No one wants to look. Transparency's there, the engagement's there, the messages are there, the information is there. We all post the information, we all share the information, but yet we still get these, but the responses are still in the, low teens. So.
Yeah,
The newsletter actually is getting some fantastic open rates. So this year, do you all remember what the open rate is? It's over 50%. 60-something, 67%. So this year, one of the things you actually used it in your presentation, the e-newsletter. So we send an email, y'all get the email, and it goes to every utility customer, and the open rate is 67%.
What's the loiter rate?
Loiter rate?
Yeah, how long do they stay?
In the email?
No, when they open are we able to track that?
We have like click rates. It's not a web page that we host, so we don't
Okay.
really have information on the loiter rate, but we just have open rate, click rate on different links.
Yeah, open and close doesn't mean that we're actually reaching anybody.
No. We do know
that's-
we're significantly higher than the standard.
Good.
Yeah,
That's
67
good.
is very
That's
high
good.
in a.
But I struggle with this one, as important as communication, transparency, community awareness, connections, messaging is important. It's super critically important. At what point, though, are we just putting, throwing more money at something that nobody really is interested in responding to in the first place? It's just a question. I'm not advocating.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I know there's some cities that they pay to boost all their Facebook and Instagram. They put a post out, they pay the booster cost, because otherwise there's so much noise, there's so much information, and people but then what happens is there's all this stuff going on and people's devices are going like crazy. But if you're not getting the message to them, they're still gonna complain that I didn't know about this, or the city's not transparent, or the city doesn't do a good job with something, and you're like, but we are, but there's just too much noise.
So my career, I spent most of my career in city government and communications, and it is the banging your head against a wall knowing that no one cares that you're bleeding now, you know what I mean? And so you're just constantly trying, but I think that the approach has to be that you have almost exhausted all means, because that very person is gonna stand up here and say, no one told me. And so you're sort of saying, well, we put it out in these 16 different ways, and so maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the effort that becomes the reality in the deliberative process. And then you also have their taxpayers, so they don't have somewhere else to go to get the information, so you go above and beyond. And I
Yeah.
totally understand what you're saying, but y'all have to determine what that balance is.
Yeah, where is that balance?
Yeah.
And, I think that all of these goals are extremely important, and we should continue them through 2025 and beyond. I just want to, as we, I know that there are areas of communication that we can use in economic development that we don't currently have to expand in that area, which may help bleed over into just the general public as well, as far as, what we have to offer. Because, there's been comments made about, well, you all don't do anything for economic development. And I was like, well, I disagree. You're just not the audience, The audience is the builders, the developers, the stores, the retailers, not, your average citizen sitting, looking for stuff. But I think that would be the only area that I would expand into.
Are you proposing any changes to these or not?
I do have a question
Yeah.
regarding community survey. What's our response rate on the survey?
14, 11, 10?
Omar or Steven, do y'all remember the response rate? It's,
Again, I think
we hit like, I think it's like 300,
Down that low?
no, it's like 300 or so. But it's statistically correlation. I think the plus and minus is 3%.
It's
Yeah, the margin of error.
Is it the
Yeah.
National Community
Okay.
Survey?
Yeah, so they have certain standards based on your population and
Yep.
based on geographic areas that they want to meet.
Or is it 5 million? It's 5%, it might be 5%.
Statistically reliable.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you don't want more participation. So my little example that I used earlier was, maybe there's a better way to get more people to respond.
So what was the answer? 3% return open?
No, I
A
think we're talking
response?
margin of error,
Margin of error.
which is about your
It's
3 to
3 to
4%. So
5%.
it's statistically significant.
It's statistically
So-
valid.
They gave us a cost to decrease that. There's a cost because of the amount of response. But what they're essentially saying is, by the time you get to that amount, you can get more people to take it. You're probably not going to move, you probably have enough to know how they feel as a whole. Again, surveys is not like something where you're trying to get 80%
Right.
survey response. I mean, that's just, you're going to get the same information at 80% as you're going to get at a much lower percent because you've reached that statistically significant threshold. So we hire professionals that manage that for us. I'd have to pull the quotes as to how to get that, there was an amount, because the number of people they would need to get to respond.
Yeah, several $1,000s.
It's a lot of money to drop that.
It's like diminishing, it's basically diminishing returns at this point.
So, in other words, then you feel that the current rate that we're doing is sufficient enough for statistical,
Yeah, I think best
Yeah.
value.
Survey,
I think we're
right?
at best value right now.
And I would say we feel that way, but I would say the professionals that do this every day feel that way for us. They said we can spend a lot of money to try to get more people to
Yeah.
take it. You're not going to see much of a difference.
that's not necessarily, the right thing to do is to get more people to take it, is that you're getting mostly accurate sampling, right? So
Correct,
that-
yeah, correct.
Ironically, we did a survey, you were on the council at the time, in 2014, we did a survey, and we got a 10% response rate from the community. So we had like 6,000 people, we got like 600 responses. It was just a simple little 10
Well,
question.
back then, it was only 1,000 people.
Okay, so just,
It's
So-
another tool.
But the community survey is something that we've used for 5 years. And I think we've used it really effective. And it's given us a really good pulse on where the city is and what the citizens think, that you should still continue to have that as part of the goal, that you continue to do that on an ongoing basis so that you get that. And I just got to say that I do appreciate, recently, you guys have started putting out emails from the utility department with your bills and a summary of what's what. And I think that's a great.
and the other thing I would say, sorry, really quick about the survey, and what's great about being able to put weight in that is that's a representative sample of the community as well. For example, you put something out about, hey, should we build a dog park? Well, who's going to share it? People that love dogs, with a lot of people that love dogs. And suddenly we're going to say 100% of the people want us to spend money on a dog park. But there's no representative sample there. A lot of dog lovers want us to spend money on a dog park. And I'm not saying we don't do a dog park. But what I am saying is in the community survey, you have a representative sample of, hey, you know how the community feels as a whole. They weight age, they weight race, they weight a lot of different things, and then they say, this is the demographic of your city, and this is how they feel as a representative sample. So as we talk about things like trying to get a better representative messaging, the ideal is somehow we find a way to message the same way we do a survey. That's very challenging to do. But there's surveys where you can put a lot of weight to say the city as a whole feels this way, taking all demographics, putting them all into the bucket and asking them how they feel.
So do you want to keep these the way they are?
I got some questions as well.
Sure.
Did you have something? Because she was first.
Well, I was just, to Alan's point, there are a lot of people that you can't make them care. And I don't think that we should focus very much on people like that. I think that if we focus on creating a community identity and we focus on making our downtown more of a vibrant downtown, I think that we will we will build community connections and engagement. That was all I had.
So where does downtown fit in the plan if that is?
I think I could fit under the connections.
Probably
and engagement.
economic
Yeah,
development.
number 3.
Okay.
So I'd like to hear more about this Citizens Academy. What was that?
Yeah, so there's a lot about how a city runs. In fact, y'all have mentioned at different times, kind of coming onto the council, I didn't realize all the different things that happened. Because a lot of the stuff we would communicate is relatively boring unless you're extremely interested in some specific piece of sewer infrastructure. No offense, Scott, I love it. Me and you are all in. But there are citizens that really are interested in how this works. And so a lot of cities around the country offer these citizen academies where you have, let's say, maybe 8 residents that sign up and say, hey, over the course of a few months, we're gonna have an academy where they come in and Scott potentially and his team comes and talks about how infrastructure works and what does it look like to get water out of your house into a treatment plant, and how do we get water into your house. There's a lot of people that don't care unless it doesn't work, but there are some people that do. And so what we would do is create an academy where those that are interested could sign up, and they could spend a few months, maybe once a month or a couple times a month coming in, hearing about how economic development works, how public infrastructure works, how public safety works. It's a much smaller, but oftentimes these are people that end up serving on boards and commissions and later kind of lead to more volunteer service in our community. That's what we envision with that.
So that could fall under number 1, basically under community awareness, branding, marketing, right?
Or 3.
Yeah, 3. Yeah, 1
Okay.
or 3.
All right, perfect.
Any more suggestions? Can we take number 4 and call it effective city? Because you increased it already, right? Can we call it another word for that instead of creasing, effective or whatever, robust, whatever words you want to come up with?
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think just one change. Any other changes?
Change increase to effective?
Whatever, robust, whatever that makes sense. Because we've increased it already, so I don't think effective. That's more broader definition. All right, so can we just move these over? Any objections by council? Seeing none, just move them.
Okay.
All right,
Next one. Sustainable infrastructure and services. So this is where we found parks, existing and new infrastructure, cybersecurity, and then the reason that 4, 5, and 6 are italicized is because they appear on the next list. That's where the split came, so that staff could manage it with a different title. So if we wanted to focus on 1, 2, and 3 in this one, but first, Michael, do you want to put your?
Yep. All right, so we have some park stuff here. All right. So we've got, I don't know, should I just kind of run through a bunch of them?
Sure, whatever you think would fit.
So property standards, improving aesthetics, focusing on the corridors, I-30, 66, 551. And then establishing community partnerships with the HOAs, businesses, et cetera. We'd have that extra, we're where the hiring process for the new code enforcement officer. You got it? Oh, we got somebody. All right. So that was that was the other half-year person that y'all added last year in the budget process. So the narcotics officer was one and the code enforcement person. So now we've got some capacity to start enhancing that. Of course, we talked about parks already, police and fire. Does economic development fit under that one? I don't know.
I think we moved it to the next.
Yep. HR. We've got the leadership training program. That's come over internal focus. And then we've got some job description improvements, performance management, we're doing that. And then enhancing the use of employee survey tools and pulse surveys and gathering feedback and et cetera. Some more HR type stuff. Let's see, IT, we got some VoIP stuff, AI. And then, of course, moving Podium, we've got that texting service, so we can add some AI responsiveness. Of course, we have to monitor that, make sure it's not giving out bad information. But our intern Beeler just loaded 300 and something Q&As to the Podium system, so that's some good stuff there. And of course, endpoints protection for mobile devices, that's important. Planning workflows, MyGov. We've got the comp plan that we'd like to go ahead and do the update for. It's time. And then some contracting GIS stuff. And then the city secretary's office, we've got some transparency, potentially live streaming more of the boards. So Parks Board, maybe live stream the Parks Board, MDD, try to get some folks, if they're interested in that, put that out there. And then she's got a lot of different technology things and AI she wants to do. Laserfish, we're implementing that. And so using that system. And enhancing customer service, focusing on the web page. And then we've got a bunch of stuff in streets. So I don't know if that, we're getting close. So the first pillar, what was the pillar?
The first part had street, it was infrastructure.
So this is a big, yeah, so there's a lot. We've got improving pavement conditions, looking at targeted traffic calming, like we had mentioned in some of the other ones, coordinating on regional transportation, using our asset management system more effectively. A lot of these are kind of getting deeper into the operations, so you can kind of see what we're up to. But a lot of this takes budget, or it's just a part of the work plan. It may not take extra money. A lot of these don't, but some of them could. And then water, wastewater, conservation, preventative maintenance, looking at response time. This kind of goes back to the customer service thing. Looking for additional funds for infrastructure upgrades. That's looking out for grants and so forth, which we've been trying to do. And of course, sustainable infrastructure, continuing work with, in conjunction with the manager's office, we're working on kind of like part 2 of that street replacement plan. We've got part 1 already. Stormwater, this is gonna be a bigger and bigger issue. The more population we get and the more impervious coverage we get. I wouldn't say necessarily population, the more coverage of the ground. So improving our stormwater systems and flood resilience, and then looking at sustainable construction practices if they don't increase costs, and just looking at different ways to procure those processes and different projects, and then once again implementing the GIS and the asset tracking as we're doing with other things. So that's kind of the rest of the list.
So lots of infrastructure nuts and bolts there. So now let's go back to that list and look at these, the top 3. If we take some of the bullets that Michael just outlined related to customer service and service delivery and move them to the next one, then we'll just focus for this portion on whether or not infrastructure and services, meaning maintenance, probably services in this context, if new and improved and maintaining existing infrastructure with relation to parks, streets, water and sewer, did these cover what would be necessary for that? Or do we need to break some out or add some? Drainage was the other one.
For number 3, enhanced cybersecurity, I mean, I think that's important, but I think there's also some, with our increased use of AI, some sort of an AI governance look at that, because when you start allowing computers to answer questions, they can do it with bias and that sort of thing, so I want to make sure we're we're not getting too far behind on that.
You mean policy, not governance?
No, governance. Governance meaning how is it maintained, you know, what data are we using, how are we, it's just something that we should look, since the AI is becoming a very big part of our environment.
Is cybersecurity still a highlight, or do we look at technology or something broader?
I think it's more than just cybersecurity. I mean, cybersecurity is very important, but
But again, if you take it up higher, it could be enhanced total technology security, your total network. It's just beyond
Cybersecurity and
Right.
whatever, what's the term to include the rest of our IT?
Yeah. Effective use of technology, or something to that expect.
Enhanced cybersecurity and effective use of technology, something
What about
along
like
those lines.
just
to it.
secure technology, safe and secure technology, which would include some of that?
This is a placeholder while we wordsmith it.
I think you nailed it.
Okay. Okay. And then, anything missing that is like, you know, kind of on the top of your mind related to infrastructure and, both maintenance and new infrastructure potentially?
I have a question. Is there any plans at all to have a rec center? Are we strictly just parks? I get asked that a lot from citizens, if there's any plans for a rec, and I don't know if we've talked about that.
I think that's a great question. We've had, this kind of goes back to the tale of two cities that we've had. Like, so we had most of Fate, let's say 10 years ago, was still the large lot subdivisions, and they had no HOAs, no community centers. Then we start adding of course, we had Spring Meadow, we had Wood Creek starting to get bigger and bigger. So of course, Wood Creek has their own thing. And then we start to see these master plan communities come in. Williamsburg gets rolling really well, and so forth. So now we've got the majority of the population not in the large lot. Now they're in the master plan communities, but they all have HOA centers. But the HOA centers are not really designed for recreation, they're designed to sell houses.
Right. And they're not accessible without paying either, so.
Right, so we're in this hybrid where people pay MUDs and PIDs and they pay HOA dues. They have inadequate HOA centers, amenity centers, though they're not bad. I mean, I love mine, it's fantastic, but it's not a community center and it doesn't get communities. I mean, we've all probably been in communities where you have a large community center. It's got all sorts of stuff and people use it. So I think that's kind of our pickle is you've got folks that maybe live in certain places, they want something more. We've got folks paying a lot of money and they're not happy. So maybe I'm not kind of trying to come to some sort of conclusion, but it's kind of like, this is kind of where we are. We've not really teed that up.
I agree with Cody. I've had a lot of people ask me about why we don't have a Parks and Rec department. You know, who does our programming? As well, we outsource programming to the YMCA, or we do our own big special events a year. What would a Parks and Rec department require to start? A director and FTE to go underneath? How many FTEs to go underneath it?
Maybe not a director. You could probably start with, like, if the city wanted to do more events and more programs, I think that would be a way to use existing assets. And now you're just doing more.
Well, now you're lumping more hours of work on a staff that is already.
Oh no, you'd have to have like an events person.
Well, that was my question. Is like, what would it take to start a Parks and Rec department?
Yeah. So we've got just kind of talking about like the maturity level of our Parks and Rec. We've got, just looking at the public side, not the HOA side. We've got 3 parks. They're in various conditions of improvement. Probably the ones that's in the best condition is here, right, Robert Smith Park. And we've got downtown, we're still kind of working on redoing that. That was kind of a little place. And Steve, feel free to come up here and join the conversation since you manage all that stuff. But, and of course, we've got Joe Burger, which we built half of Joe Burger. We're putting in some sport fields stuff now. We've been chasing grants for different things. We've got the VeloWeb Trail, which looks like we're gonna get the middle part built with Lafayette Crossing. So then it's just trying to get to the other cities, trying to connect the neighborhoods. We've made some progress planning, put together of course, we had the trail plan, we had the park plan, which is updated continually, but now they also put together kind of an execution of how would you actually connect these neighborhoods. So we've got that level of planning now for trails. So we've been making some progress, but we've never quite ascended to the next level where we've talked about like a community
With an
center
actual rec
or
center.
a ton of events.
Because the way that it's written now is we're maintaining exactly what we have.
Right.
Yeah,
And so if the idea
We're
is that
making we're making small improvements.
I'm not.
Yeah.
No, the
No,
goal,
As far
just
as the goals.
No, no.
Policy
We're
level.
just maintaining.
Michael, the
And
goal
so
says
the
maintain
intention is-
parks.
Yeah, maintain parks. And part of the things that we struggle with, you'll see we put a lot of stuff in the goals session and we have all these goals and then we get to the budget and then we're like, well, between the tax reductions and the public safety, that's
guess-
it, we're
I guess
done.
that's my question, is that if we go from maintain parks to, create a Parks and Rec department, what does that look like? So as we go into, and the next people who get elected come in, start to go through this, what does that look like?
Yeah, and I think that the answer is it depends on what you want it to be. So you could have.
I want to start a Parks and Rec department, just like Cody said.
But I think
What do you want them to, what do you want them to, like, what do you want them to do?
Yeah, but
Like, what's
Michael,
the outcome? So we say we have a Parks and Rec department, what does that look like? I mean, we have parks, they're maintained, it's not under a Parks and Rec department, but we maintain parks.
No, we have great staff
Do
that
you mean
maintain our parks. I'm talking about.
recreation more?
Recreation,
Activating.
programming, activating.
So it's more
our-
the
our
program, okay.
spaces, reaching out and partnering with the HOAs for their parks and stuff, and just
Okay.
trying to,
And I appreciate that, because I think what we're saying is, so it's more of a programming thing than it is
Yeah.
park, because when I hear Parks Department, I think kind of what we do, just in a
Parks is
different department.
maintaining, recreation
Correct.
is the action of participating in the parks.
So it's not necessarily that it has to be a Parks and Recreation department, it's we want more programming. However, the outcome is the programming.
He doesn't want it laid on somebody as an additional duty.
See, the way-
because then
We
it's
would
not
agree.
gonna
Steve has
grow.
enough to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
The
kind of
way,
do that.
Michael, the way we
did that.
discussed this already last year and this year is adding headcount under Steve, right? The question is would you do incremental steps? So what we discussed is just doing headcount to do Parks and Recreation, and you have them figure out what the priority is, programming or whatever it is, right?
As
To
Matt said, what's the transition plan for?
Right, so the way we've been discussing in the past is to add headcount and then create a department sooner or later, right? That's how I would do it.
See, the other thing too is, remember, Joe Burger Park, when we first put out the bond, it was like $12 million to finish that park. And we did 3.5.
Right, 7, I think it was 7,
Now,
but it'll be 12 now.
it'll be
get
12
in.
now, right?
Pre-2020,
Okay, fine. 7, and now 12, but the question is, we've got the 3 main parks, right? We got a bunch of little sub-parks, pocket parks and community parks, HOA parks and whatnot. What added services? I know we've added another pickleball court or something over onto Smith Roberts. We're adding another basketball court over there. What is the cost or the next incremental phase for Joe Burger Park and for, Fate Station?
Yeah.
Because Fate Station is just finally, after 3 years being finalized? Right? And I know there's a whole bunch more stuff to go around there, the amphitheater and that. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
you
got-
have to take into account those additional capital
sure.
costs.
You could look at,
And, and if you're looking at another 15, let's say $15 million, right? You're now looking at another 4 to 6 cent tax rate increase.
Sure.
Just
What's
to deal
more
with
than
parks,
that
if
is
it
it
passes.
you could spend 10 million downtown and another 5 to 10 down south. The park fees are kind of coming in well, but the park fees are not, going to get us to the next level. It's filling in the gaps. It's doing the basketball court. It's doing the pickleball court. It's doing little stuff. And then you look at implementing the trail plan. Ryan, do y'all remember what the trail plan cost was? If someone decided, hey, we're gonna do a trail bond, it would be like 20, wouldn't it be like 20 million? 20 to 40?
It was way up there.
So let's do
Yeah,
this.
so there's, that's kind of like,
I guess the thing that I keep thinking of is when I talked to Chief about, building another fire station, he goes, well, we can build a fire station with a bond, but then we got to staff it every year.
right.
What does that look like? Is kind of the answer I'm looking for. Not that I have to answer right now, but, if we are going to start moving towards a Parks and Recreation department or programming or something like that in the next 3 years, where do we start and what do we have to add to have that, just to start that process?
So we'll go, why we put maintain parks, and then your suggestion would be create park programming or create recreation programming, something like that. We're mixing, yeah.
So I get what everybody's saying. I think we have a lot of parks. I think that's great. We're talking about trails, that's great. It's Texas, it's hot.
It's hot.
So we don't have a rec center. And I think that is something I would like to, long-term plan look into, because I think that does provide community engagement, and it's something different that we are lacking here in Phaeton we don't have. And a lot of cities, they do have them, and they're great for kids, they're great for families. Sometimes they have gyms inside of them. They'll have ping pong, basketball courts, different things that, bring the community together. So I'm a little less inclined to create more bureaucracy with a city, like with a Parks and Rec program. We kind of can maintain our parks as is, I think, until we decide we're gonna create a rec center. Then I could see creating a Parks and Rec
Yeah, I think
department.
So
you
why
make
don't
a
we-
great point that that's a whole nother level.
So I think,
And that you can't, not that you can't skip there.
I
They should
don't
cut
think
the
we're
mayor off.
talking
Go
about
ahead.
skipping there. I think we're talking about setting a direction to
That's absolutely right, and so it sounds to me, if I'm listening to what everyone is saying, that we want to broaden this one a bit, so that it's not just maintaining what we have, but we're also looking to the future.
I think Scott had a good idea.
It would, and I'm hearing everything, and what's blowing my mind is just the dollars that we're never gonna have right now as it relates to do it, because I'm not comfortable taking the tax increase to do a lot of this right now, but eventually our budget will be there, hopefully, ideally. So I think the appropriate deal with this would be to maintain and develop parks and park programming, something along those lines, so that it is a focus for the city to know that we want these parks developed, maintained, and to do more with them.
Yeah.
recreation
Is that fair,
program.
Cody?
Recreation programming.
Recreation programming.
Sure.
You okay with that, Scott?
Yeah.
Though I know you made the comment of we'll have more money later. In 10 years, the street replacement begins. So
That's another conversation.
The next
That's another
decade will,
pillar. It's fine.
the next decade's the best decade, and then,
All right, any more on
not to
this
be a
one?
downer, but
Any more on this one? All right, we can move on.
Okay, so we've got infrastructure, public works kind of stuff, we've got parks kind of stuff, and then we've talked about technology, safety, and security. So I think, does that cover, okay. So now we'll look at the one where we split service excellence and economic growth, and this is where we were talking about, potentially if governance needed to fit somewhere, this might be it, but we also may still want to consider separating it out. But this is where we moved excellent customer service, stabilizing the workforce, so those internal kinds of things, and then building a resilient business environment. So if we're thinking about economic growth, that's where things like the comprehensive plan that staff had, and then some of the other things on your list. Do you need to review any of the other pieces that we just went over?
did y'all see something in the other slides you want to pull into this one as an overall?
So,
This is the utility pieces would go in here, correct?
Yeah, yes, I think so, if it's customer service.
customer service.
Customer service and economics.
What stabilized workforce mean?
In the way I would interpret that is, we've got 3 slots for police officers, and we're going to try and hire them this year.
You had a lot of human resources things.
We've got implementation of the pay plan in the next year's budget, looking like that's coming. And we've got some personnel things. Yeah, there is some HR stuff in
So
there.
my question on this one is, was stabilize the word from 2 years ago because we had a lot of turnover, and is that still the word, or is it something different than that?
I think recruit and retain, or you couldn't retain a good workforce or whatever words you want to use.
I'm looking beyond you
City
to Lee.
workforce.
Lee, did you want to try and help? Just hang out. Keep going.
Maybe,
So I take it customer service is still
Yeah.
on the list? Okay.
Definitely.
Is there a way to broaden that a little bit too? Because I know that we have a permit system that you can get onto. We have a bill pay system, municipal court system. We have all these little systems that don't look anything alike and are very difficult to navigate around and locate. Is there any way to consolidate the customer service that falls under that goal? Is there any kind of?
We do have, yeah, perhaps. We've got, of course, Invoice Cloud coming out with utilities. But that's kind of a utility, it'll make the utility bill look much, much nicer.
This kind of goes with sort of what you're saying. I get asked all the time, what's going up right there? You know, and they'll give me a street and I'm supposed to magically spit it out. Is there something like on
We have-
social media, like
we
what's
have
coming
that.
to this corner or
Yes,
whatever?
we have that right now. In fact, they built that, planning built that last year, or this last year. And so there's a projects page, essentially, that you can click on it, and it's got the map, and you can walk around, and it'll,
It might be cool to put that on Facebook too, like every now and again. That way people, because I get that question all the time and I'm like, I don't know.
yeah, one of the most,
The, Matt talking about putting together a economic development centered website that leaves out all the other when's your trash get picked up and everything like that, is just focused for the economic development of the city of Fayette, would also include that map of ongoing projects,
I
which
think
could
that
be
would be
another
great.
resource for citizens to see what's going on with economic development very, very directly, because now it will be focused towards, if I'm not mistaken, towards the developer, towards the realtors, towards the recruitment and maintaining of businesses. This is more talking about just, Steve's got a permit system that you can get on and reserve the Fayette Community Center. You can go to another website to pay your utility bill and your court, and it's just like, it just seems very, nothing's
So the customer experience on the other end
Customer
is seamless,
experience.
is it?
discuss,
A customer portal.
yeah,
but we just
customer
read-
portal, thank you.
But the thing is that we just read it in the website. So within that website itself, you have those very categories. So what you're saying, you want to split the website again into two parts.
No?
Make a micro site.
No, you're talking about the
I
economic
mean, that's
development?
what customer portal, I mean, I developed customer portal before,
Well,
right?
I
That's what
just-
that does. So you take the website, you have information part of the website, and you have customer portal part of the website, and it's just more a segment of website we have today.
A simple example is the logo on the billing website is stretched and squished, and it bothers me, but that's just me because I'm in advertising.
oh, that is
But-
gonna get fixed. The Invoice Cloud will make it look
It's
super
been
cool.
wanting to get fixed ever since I've been here, so, but I'm
This-
just saying that
This
it
year,
just.
we're actually doing it.
But you make a good point, because, so as the end user, if I have to maintain 6 different logins, because the systems
No,
are
there's-
different, that becomes really inconvenient to a person. So I think that's what you're getting at, is there
Portal.
a way that we?
We don't have six,
Oh,
Michael, we don't have 6 different logins, but we have one login, right?
I hate facetious.
no,
No.
I mean, if you're going for a permit, it's gonna be a different login than your utility billing account, than your
Yeah.
different things. Now, the challenge is finding a software company that creates a software that does all of those. Most of
Well,
them are
Signal-
segmented. The permit software development team is not the utility billing software development team.
You
Now,
don't have to
I
update
came
it.
from a city where we hired our own engineers, software engineers, and we developed our own software. That's a different animal. But like, I don't see MyGov getting into utility billing payments.
Yeah, we did switch to Tyler for building permitting, and it was so bad that we basically uninstalled it and told them we wanted our money back and went back to MyGov. So some of these systems are
Which is kind of my point. Is there a way that we can move towards a customer portal for our residents, that they can find the things that they need simply? If they want to rent the Fayette Community Center and pay their utility bill at the same time, they could do that.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is you don't really mind that it's different softwares. It's just a place to go where you can find all those services you're looking for.
Yes and no. Yes, I think that's a great first step.
Okay.
No, I think that we could be better at some point.
So if
I hear what you're saying. I hear
Okay,
the long-term,
yeah.
long-term where we want to go.
Right.
So technology is one of the things that kind of is mentioned AI and using it responsibly and effectively earlier. Do we need something in service excellence that's different than just if you come in, I treat you well as a customer and you get what you need? Is there something related to technology that we want to be more thoughtful of, focused on, moving toward? I don't know.
What I'm hearing all falls under the subsection of excellent customer service. It's how you do, how you deliver it. It's whether it's website enhancements, whether it's somebody actually smiles and greets you when you walk up to a window. There's so many little things that fall into it that you can address it. I think it's up to staff to figure out. how to
We
do
have
that
started
most
talking about it
efficiently.
internally as kind of excellent resident experience, which includes software, includes how you're treated, because customer service, well, I mean, it can definitely be both. We're probably just semantics
But I
at this
think,
point.
Stephen,
but
I think,
I hear what you're saying.
how many technologies do we have behind the website? We have how many different softwares?
Probably over 10.
Okay.
I like the customer experience rather than customer service, because we want to provide an experience for people when they log into.
That's,
I like that.
Yeah, and internally, we've been talking
No, I
about
was
it that way,
looking at
right?
David.
When
David
somebody
doesn't
hops on our
like
website, what's their experience? When they walk into our building,
yeah,
what's that
there's,
experience
we
look like?
just, I mean, much I agree with that, and I thought about that. The problem we just redid our website without a lot of.
And nobody's saying a new website.
Hang on a second,
For
I'm just
sure.
saying, well, that's what we are talking about.
We're talking about the
because-
content. We're going to be changing content regularly.
I get it, but that's what we're saying. So if you have 10 back-end systems, a single sign-on system, there's a pane of glass between the residents and the back-end system. So you go log in once and you have a menu, you go by A, B, C, and D, whatever. That is customer experience. The way the website is designed right now is for customer service. It's not designed for optimum experience. And we didn't get a lot of feedback from a lot of the residents when we did it. We just did it, right? And the website looks somewhat the same, but I agree with Alan in the fact that SSOs are hard to manage unless you have your own software development team, because I've done it. And anybody, major corporations have done this, have figured out SSOs are really hard. You got to maintain them. That's why I asked the question, how many technology we have behind this? There's 10, it's hard to manage. So your challenge is going to be on how you go from a customer service to a customer experience. But it's going to take a substantial redesign of how we think about the website. And I've done it for many years, and it's hard.
Well, but again, that needs to be a subsection under the customer experience. So we can get down to the weeds as far as how the website works. We can get down to the weeds to how somebody says hello to you at at the window. It all falls under that. And it's at this point, it should be up to staff to come back and say, this is what we're looking at if it meets with y'all's deal, whether it's the website or whatever.
All right, next. What else we got to do this one?
The workforce?
I think we need a better word than stabilize.
Yeah,
but
that was my question, is there something different, a different word than
Retain.
stabilize? Was that just because of the time we were in? when
We just
talked about
retain,
retention?
recruit, retain, whatever. Recruit, retain new talent, top talent, whatever. you want to do.
Internally, we're using a lot of the word developing our workforce,
So retain,
growing their
train,
capacity,
right.
training,
Hire, retain,
Yep.
train,
strengthen
word
and
you
develop,
wanna
or
develop. I would say develop, retain, and train, or whatever. Some words like that, Hillary, you can figure it out. But, so whatever that turns out to be.
Putting those as place
Yeah.
markers for my brain.
And resilient business environment, you want to carry that over?
So is resilient business environment, we talked about downtown, we talked about economic development. We also earlier talked about just community growth and not necessarily related to business growth. So is resilient business environment, do we need to say what that contains, and then is there something else that we need to add to this list that covers other things? The comprehensive plan, which you have on your list, and I'm sorry to keep going back to that, but it's something that's gonna happen over this term. Where would it fit? Does it fit in resilient business environment, or is it broader, like more of a community growth?
No, I don't think it fit, I mean, it can fit in business environment. I mean, if you mess it up.
It's bigger than
it
that.
will.
It's much bigger than that, in my
Well,
opinion.
it's a governing document.
It's a governing
that
document.
starts to get
So it
to
has to-
governance, right?
To
Yes.
me, it's underneath it, right? So you have your pillars this way, right? Underneath is the comp plan, because to your point, Alan, you have the comp plan underneath. probably encompasses all the pillars, right? And then the governance is on the side where it covers all of it.
The comp plan is part of governance. It's policy.
Could be. Or just, but it's a one-time action, governance ongoing.
Well, unless Austin takes it away from us, but hey,
Either way
you
it
know.
works, but.
Well, do we wanna separate out business development and community growth? Is there a big enough difference there that we would treat those or the, whatever, community development, whatever you would call the right words for
I think they are separate, and I say that because of the downtown area. I think we want to create a business environment, but it's also about like establishing that community, the sense of community as well. Having a nice, vibrant downtown makes people feel like they belong or they live in a cool place. So I think they are different. Personally.
It's a community-based economic hub, if you will,
Sure.
the downtown.
Not
Just
sure
to
what
put
that
words
means
on the
either.
screen,
Yeah,
you
but
know?
if you think about it, think of Lake Highland, right? It's a neighborhood, Dallas, North Dallas, but everywhere you go, it's all Lake Highland, all, so they have their own little identity. And I agree with what Cody's saying about if you did that in the downtown area, you create its own little micro environment of what it is, that it gives it helps build a sense of community. Because you think about it, what are our major areas? Oh, Wood Creek, right? Chamberlain Crossing, right? So, some of those areas, Northview, Southview, they really don't have much of an identity. There's not necessarily a lot of centralized stuff, but at least in the downtown core, you could do something like that, right?
Well, they have identities, they just have by
Yeah,
neighborhood, right?
but what I'm saying is there's not a lot, other than a community identity or a neighborhood identity, there's not a lot for a draw, right? Versus like Fate Village, right? There's a draw there. Or downtown, there's a draw there.
Sure, like Rockwell's got the harbor, they've got their downtown.
All right, are we good with this one? Everybody?
Still don't know that we have captured what we're going to need. When I talked to each of you, there was a very clear difference of opinion related to how residential growth should continue in the community. And I just think that if there is something.
This is not residential growth. You lost me on this one.
Can be.
No, what I'm saying is that I don't think that fits under resilient business environment, but it does fit under community growth or something broader than it. So I'm just trying to make sure we don't leave here without encompassing that in some way that's going to make the people who have differing opinions, satisfied that we're addressing it in some way as staff.
I think that's a good point, yeah. That it's different residential versus, our business environment and the downtown area and how we brand those things. And to Lance's point, people talk about subdivisions rather than the downtown area. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the way that it works.
Yeah, maybe Ryan or Steven, do y'all think you can take Cody's thoughts and do you have any ideas for what we would call that?
How about just some local branding for downtown? One thing, like if you go into some of these locations, downtown areas, they got little banners hanging from the light poles and stuff, right? Promoting the downtown area.
Or something maybe simple as, grow downtown.
That makes people think you're trying to put more apartments. Don't do that. Don't do that.
That's the number one factor for a downtown that's successful.
I feel like that's why I'm just picking the scab.
I like what Lance said about branding or rebranding or revitalizing or however, we want to give downtown an identity. When you think of Grapevine, you think of their beautiful downtown. Rockwall, you think of the harbor. We want something like that in Fate.
Yeah. One of the things we're running into, and Matt's over there too, we might need you here, is, because we were talking about this couple 3 weeks ago, is our downtown just doesn't have enough critical mass yet. It's starting to feel that way, but it probably is about a third of what it needs to be, maybe half.
We want to create a personality downtown, like
it's,
I'm just reminded that in the existing comprehensive plan, there's an entire vision statement about a vibrant downtown with 3 goals and multiple objectives underneath that. So there's already kind of a direction set for revitalizing or growing our downtown. It includes wayfinding, it includes marketing, it includes events. So a lot of the things that you're talking about, we have an adopted document that really sets that, forward, and we're already making progress on a couple of those items.
So what's being worked on? I mean,
Anything
this is
else
a
on
goal.
this?
What kind of a goal are we going to do to accomplish that? Right, I mean, yeah, it's one thing to have them listed, it's another thing to act on them.
If there's already a document that gives, you and staff direction to implement certain items, does there need to be a separate goal here? Kind of reinventing something that's already in play. That's why I bring it up.
How do we spark somebody to start doing that document?
Well, we are now. I mean, if you look on the comprehensive plan website, we're tracking the progress of every single one of those goals, and it's showing a pretty decent amount of progress on
Okay.
a number of those items. Wayfinding's one thing that we haven't implemented yet, and we've been having internal discussions about that.
sure. And a lot of that, our economic development folks, which are, Matt is running as hard as he can and doing a great job. We've got, we're gonna talk about one of our projects tonight in executive session. But, yeah, a lot of they're gonna lead some of those efforts, and a lot of that's gonna be MDD, working with the staff and trying to figure out where those belong in the budget process, if it belongs in kind of maintenance at Steve's camp, or if it's streets and Scott's camp, or if it's Matt.
A lot of the identity piece will be tied into Fate Station Park. So I think, to me, it's the cultural center, and that's what you're talking about.
That's right,
branding,
yeah.
and creating that. I think if it's pushed too hard, it's fake.
Sure.
It has to become something on its own, and so we have to give people a reason to want to gather.
Yeah.
And then I want people asking you the question of what's going on next Saturday. And then the next week, I want them telling you what's happening next
Yeah.
Saturday. And then I want the businesses saying, I hope something's happening next Saturday, and then that turns into, we better staff up next Saturday because we
Right.
have that next, whatever it is, going on downtown. And it becomes organic, it pushes itself, the community has ideas, they grow from there. So I think right now, it feels like baby steps, but this next step here is Fate Station Park, helping to create that identity, and then you all pushing that out there, of course, and that creates more business momentum as well.
Sure, and I love the Fate Station Park plans. I guess some of the things that I know were in the comp plan, like we had the Ramston deal at one time, we were gonna bring the police station. To me, that's kind of counter to what I hear the feedback of from the people on the ground. They like the Fate Station Park, but there was some things in the comp plan. Admittedly, I haven't gone into great detail to look into the future, but I know we're trying to, go in that direction, in the right direction, I guess.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that that's included in the goals so that we can
Yes.
get there.
We're walking and chewing gum at the same time.
Sure.
So the Fate Station Market, that's a piece, the promenade already exists.
Right.
And activating that space and creating a farmers and artisan market. We can start doing that now and then push that momentum forward.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Yeah, all that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, page 10 of the comprehensive plan has vibrant downtown and the 3 goals associated with it.
Right.
If you want to look it up, we can look it up.
All right, anything else on this one we gotta do?
Last call.
Okay, let's go on. What is the next one?
That's it. That was the last one. So if we determine that we believe governance should be a more overarching principle in all of this, and there's like sort of a preamble perhaps, I'm also thinking that maybe something like we plan as a community that sort of touches on the fact that the comprehensive plan guides most of what is coming. I think that can be addressed in that way reasonably. I think that was, I don't think there's anything else that was on that master list that we gathered that was not covered in this unless someone thinks that there was. Okay, so what
All right.
happens next? Oh, I'm sorry, did I hear something?
No, go ahead.
Oh,
You're
okay,
fine.
so what happens next is that you saw a preview of kind of how staff intends to build out the plan for you. It's the action steps. So what we'll do is we'll clean up this draft of the pillars and the goals. We'll add something of a preamble, if you will, that kind of addresses the things that were outliers. Staff will then start populating what the action plan looks like moving forward and give you sort of timelines and thoughts about when things might transpire, whether it's going to be this fiscal year, next, that sort of stuff. And then what we would ask for you to do is officially adopt the plan so that it becomes part of, that's the affirmation in the process, so that staff then knows, okay, this is how we're carrying forward with all of the things that happen. We want to publish it to the public, so we want to make sure that the public is aware that this has been adopted and that there is a vision for the city and this is where we intend to go. Then we also want to establish expectations for reporting. So whether that is every 6 months we expect a report on it, if it's annual, whatever you all feel the right cadence is when you adopt it, I would advise that you say this is our expectation so that we don't go 6 months or a year and you go, what the heck is happening? We want to make sure that you're hearing about it as regularly as you as a body want to. And then we also want to establish that it'll be reviewed, whether it's annually, biannually, so that it can be reviewed and affirmed and or updated if necessary, because some of the goals, while they may take a longer duration, some of them may be accomplished more quickly than others, and we want this to be a flexible document in some ways, so that if circumstances change, we can go with the flow or can update. Are there any other concerns, questions, thoughts, heartburn? I just heard a
Right, going once, going twice. Okay.
Good work, y'all.
Thank you.
I will, like I said, I'll polish this up and I'll have it back to Michael for him to bring back to you all. And then you will have at least a draft that you can consider for adoption.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
y'all.
All right, Vicki, what's next?
Okay, next will be Agenda Item 6, which is executive session in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.001. The City Council will recess into executive session closed meeting to discuss the following. A, in accordance with Texas Government Code 551.087, to discuss or deliberate regarding economic development negotiations. 1, Project Cactus.
All right, I'll take an executive session at 8:12. Thank you. All right, Vicki, next, please.
Okay, no action will be taken on items discussed in executive session, so item 8 is adjournment.
I'll take a motion.
Second.
Vote. I made the motion, Alan seconded it. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Have a good evening.